Welcome back to Snark and Spark. My name is Emily, and today is the beginning of my August reading vlog. I'm going to try to do all of the books I read in August in one video with very short clips of what the book is, a quick introduction, and my thoughts right after I finish the book instead of trying to do it at the end. So today's video clip is going to be really quickly because I actually need to go to work. But I finished this last night and I want to talk about it before I head to work because I'm going to return it because obviously I'm done with it. So this is Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. This is one of the Goodreads 2022 like top 20 horror books. So sorry, I know this area is kind of shadowy. I'm still figuring out the lighting in this area of my room. Also, my books. Okay, so let's talk about this book. This is marketed as a werewolf novel. It says it right on the cover. Yes, werewolf novel, yes. I had mixed feelings about this book because I went into it with just thinking werewolf novel and horror, right? And I wanted it to be spooky and scary and violent. And while it is violent in a way, it wasn't just like the straight up horror that I guess I'm still looking for with this like ongoing series of reading the Goodreads 2022 horror. It to me is a paranormal romance, which is fine, but that's not what I was looking for. So that's not what I was prepared for. It follows a set of twins, Rory and Scarlett. Scarlett is pregnant and has asked her sister Rory to come home from Manhattan and be with her through this pregnancy. There's some family drama that goes on with why she kicked her man out. There's stuff with their mama. There's childhood trauma that gets brought up. And of course, right away, Rory gets bitten by a werewolf and turns. And so then the whole book is her then dealing over the next several months with her transformation and dealing with the repercussions of becoming a werewolf, right? It does detail quite graphically her transformations, and I can see how that would be scary because it does sound utterly terrifying and excruciatingly painful. But then that's it. Like, we don't really get a lot of her as the wolf. Like, we are given a description of her transformation, a really brief kind of look into it, and then it's like fade to black. She wakes up the next day naked kind of thing. And then lots of vomiting. Like, it's mainly a book about her dealing with this sense of like powerlessness, right? She is not in control of her body. She had childhood trauma where she also wasn't in control of her body. It's just an allegory for female power dynamics, essentially, and within ourselves and within society, and how we are treated by men and abused. And yes, I see the connection and I understand, and the author even admits in their note that like they read The Body Keeps the Score, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma, and She Wolf, A Cultural History of Female Werewolves. And those two books really influenced how she wrote this story. So yes, it is layered and nuanced, but at the heart of it, it is also her reconnecting with this long unrequited love on the guy's part, not her part. He is madly in love with her and has been since 6th grade, and now as an adult she's finally willing to like give him a chance. That felt very contrived to me. Ian feels just a little too good to be true, and of course it does end up being what I deem a paranormal romance, and so of course there were fluffiness and cute parts that aren't necessarily the problem. It's just that's not what I was wanting from this book. If that's something you enjoy, then yes, you're going to love it. Because I wasn't prepared for it, it definitely took me down. It took me out of it, but maybe someone else would enjoy it. Not for me. So, Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison, I gave a 3 on the lower end, probably more like a 2.75. 3 stars. All right, so I'm here this morning because I finished In Deeper Waters yesterday. So let's talk about this. Let's see, this is In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens. It is a YA novel. I listened to it as an audiobook. And we are following the royal family. This is Tal, Prince Taliesin. In the book, they kept saying his full name is like Taliesin. It's Taliesin. This is Prince Taliesin, and this is Athlin. Let you get a good look at them. So essentially, we are in like a fantasy kingdom where there used to be magic, but it's very rare now. And we are going along with Prince Tal on his coming of age tour, and it just gets off on a rocky start. So essentially, he is the 4th in line to the throne. His oldest sister is set to be queen. His next older brother, her name is Isa. Then his next brother is Garrett, and he is the commander of the naval, the naval commander. I was gonna say the naval army, and that's repetitive. His next brother, Kest, which is short for Kestrel, is a scholar and a shapeshifter. He can turn into a bird. Notice the name. Then there is Taliesin, who, surprise, surprise, has magic. Of course he does. He has the magic of his great-grandfather, who apparently was this very horrible mage and tried to essentially get rid of all other magic that existed in the world because he wanted to take over. And so now magic is viewed as dangerous and scary, and it's a crime. So Taliesin, Prince Tal for short, Tal has been hidden away basically his entire life. When his magic first manifested, his family sent out rumors that he was sick, that he was a weak child, and they kept him sequestered in the castle. But now that he is coming of age at like 17, he goes out on his tour, and he's doing his tour, but he still is supposed to keep his magic as a secret. And then lastly, there's Corey. She is the youngest. She's really not that important. She kind of just pops in at the end, and that's about it. She strikes me as being probably like a precocious child. I think she's supposed to be like 7 or 8. It doesn't matter. Anyways, he's on his coming of age tour when right off the bat, they run into a burning ship that is like falling apart in the ocean, and chained to this ship that is on fire and sinking is a young red-headed boy named Athlin. And then what ensues is this very fun, romantic, magic-filled fantasy that does for these 2 young boys. I loved it. Is it the best written? No. Is it the best story? No. Is it convoluted? And yes, all of that. But I loved it for what it was, which is a coming of age love story between 2 boys with magic. There's magic and pirates, and they're sailing, and then they go on an adventure, and water magic. There's a sea queen or sea witch, and bargaining with the sea witch, and mer people. Like it is an not even high fantasy, but a fantasy love story between these 2 teenage boys, and it was exactly what I needed to kind of break the monotony. I've been reading a lot of horror. I've been reading a lot of heavier content. Sorry, I'm very tired. I stayed home sick today, so I am yawning. I am basically reserving all of my energy to do this clip right now. Anyways, yeah, I've been reading a lot of just general fiction, a lot of horror, a lot of darker, heavier topics. So this popped up as like a recommended book in my Libby app of like August is like pirates. It was something to, it was just popped up of like pirates. And I read the description, which I'll share with you the description. You can decide if this is going on way too long, but decide if you like it, if this is what you're into. Most princes would be eager for their coming of age tour, but Tal isn't most princes. He knows he can't partake in the adventure and debauchery his siblings enjoyed on their tours, not when letting loose could mean accidentally revealing his forbidden magic and upending his kingdom's hard-won peace. But when his ship's crew rescues a mysterious prisoner from a burning derelict vessel just a few days into the journey, his world changes. Tal is surprised to feel an intense connection with the roguish Athlin. So when Athlin leaps overboard and disappears, Tal feels responsible and heartbroken, knowing that Athlin could not have survived in the open ocean. That is, until Tal runs into Athlin days later on dry land, very much alive and as charming and secretive as ever. But before they can pursue anything further, Tal is kidnapped by pirates and held for ransom in a plot to reveal his rumored powers and instigate a war. Tal must escape if he hopes to save not only himself, but his family and the kingdom, and Athlin might just be his only hope. Now, like I said, I really, really enjoyed it. For a light, fluffy piece. It's not going to be for everyone. It is LGBTQ friendly, which I adore. I love that. Very inclusive writing. His family is loving and open and accepting. It was just what I needed in this moment. So yeah, I'm definitely giving it like a 4 out of 5, like, because of what it did for me right now. Was it, like I said, was it convoluted? Yes. Did there seem to be some weird plot lines and some contrivances? Did things wrap up a little too easy in certain things? Yes. Did I find some of the characters, like Tal's never-ending guilt over his magic, annoying? Yes. But I also really liked the inclusion of gay characters and young gay characters at that. I loved that they do show that Tal is going to be going through some PTSD. As you know, he gets kidnapped. That's in the thing. It's not a spoiler. They do show that there is some PTSD and what that involves. And as someone who has been diagnosed with PTSD, that's really important. I love representation that is accurate, because you can't expect that a teenage boy that goes through some of these things to not experience some traumatic stress afterwards. And I think it is done in a very well way. It's very, very small, but it's still there, and it was still meaningful to me as someone who has experienced these things, right? So 4 out of 5. Check it out if you want. It was cute. Okay, I'm back with another book update. Today is Wednesday, August 23rd. Just quick, it is Caden's first day of 5th grade, which is exciting, but it is also the anniversary of my dad's death. So today is really emotional, and it's my day off, and the weather is boiling hot, and I don't have a car, so I'm stuck at home. This day is complicated. My car is currently in the shop. It is being repaired finally, which is exciting, but that means we are down to 1 vehicle. So, and Bryant had to work today. My husband had to work today, so he took our remaining vehicle to work, leaving me home alone since it is my day off with no vehicle. So, a little stressful. We have a motorcycle that, like, he did drive to work yesterday because we both had to work yesterday, but it is supposed to be like 101 here today, and neither of us really wanted him out in this heat on the motorcycle. So I'm here, and luckily, if he's not home by the time I have to go get Caden from school, we live like within a mile of Caden's school, so I can just walk to go get him. Not ideal because it is going to be hot, but that is much more doable than not getting. It's fine. It's doable. So I can walk to go get him and we can walk home. Not a big deal. But I finished a book literally 20 minutes ago. So let's see. It is early because I've been awake since we took Caden to school, and even though I was kind of sleepy, I didn't want to go back to bed. I I could have, but I didn't. I stayed up. So instead, I finished this book. This is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It is a collection of short stories. It also features the novella Especially Heinous. So I'm going to read you the back just to kind of give an idea, and then I'm going to go through each of the stories and tell you my ratings for each story. So this is a debut. In this electric and provocative debut, Carmen Maria Machado blithely demolishes the borders between psychological realism and science fiction, comedy and horror, fantasy and fabulism. She bends genres to shape startling stories, it's a lot of S's, that map the realities of women's lives and the violence twisted upon their bodies. So before I go on, there is some trigger warnings. I just want to kind of cover that. This is a moment for you if you don't want to talk about this. She is right. They are right. This does focus on, based off the title, Her Body and Other Parties. It does focus a lot in a weird kind of sci-fi horror-y way about what women go through. There are mentions of sex. There's mentions of violence. There's hints of definitely hints of violence against women, abandonment, those kinds of things. So definitely treat yourself with kindness if you can't handle that. I'm going to continue now. A wife refuses her husband's entreaties to remove the green ribbon from around her neck. A woman recounts her sexual encounters as a plague slowly consumes humanity. A sales clerk in a mall makes a horrifying discovery within the seams of the store's prom dresses. And the bravura novella Especially Heinous, inspired by Law & Order Special Victims Unit, is a phantasmagoric police procedural full of doppelgangers, ghosts, and girls with bells for eyes. Earthy and otherworldly, antic and sexy, queer and caustic, comic and deadly serious, Her Body and Other Parties enlarges the possibilities of contemporary fiction. I wish I brought my water up here because I am very thirsty. So let's get into it. So the very first story there are 8 stories in this collection. Story number 1 is called The Husband Stitch. I really, really enjoyed this story. This is all about a woman, and essentially it recounts her story from teenagehood through marriage, as she is going, her relationship with her husband. She has this green ribbon tied around her neck. It definitely feels like a retelling of that Japanese horror story, folktale. Look that up. I don't know enough about it to competently talk about it here, but it does remind me a lot of that story. I believe it is Japanese, about a woman whose head is attached essentially with this green ribbon. Also, I guess I'm going to have spoilers in this, so, but look that up. It definitely was like a retelling of that, and it's all about her going through her relationship with her husband and him wanting her to take off this ribbon, her telling him no, having her child, they have a son, and then like as his, their child grows up, and then he asks her to take off the ribbon. I really enjoyed it, probably like 4.5 or 5 stars. It was a really good short story. I really, really enjoyed it. It set the tone for this book. And I was like, ooh, okay. I will say these first several stories I rated very highly. I really, really enjoyed them. And then it kind of tapered off for me. And then I think near the end it picked back up. The next story is Inventory, and this is the one where a woman is recounting her sexual encounters as a plague is slowly consuming humanity. That's really the gist of it. So I don't really need to go into there, but it is called Inventory, and all of them is
starts with like the numbers. It'll say 1 blank. And yeah, it is just the different people that she has come across with. I really, really enjoyed this as well. It's not graphic necessarily. It's emotional because you're getting snippets. At first you just think you're getting these little bits of pieces of her past, starting as from when she was young as she gets older, and some of them are more intense, some of them are not as intense, but interspersed in them you start getting these hints that there is some horrible disease that's ravaging the countryside, and it makes it very unsettling. But it was really, really good. I liked that one a lot. I think that one was definitely like a 4.5. Next is a story called Mothers. This one was weird. I didn't particularly enjoy this story. It is all about a gay couple, and a woman is left with a baby by her partner, and then her partner leaves, and it is her kind of recounting her relationship with Bad, which is like the birth mother, and then interspersed with her dealing with this brand new baby. And then it gets kind of weird, and she travels, and there's like, I think she breaks into like a house. It was definitely weird. I didn't enjoy it that much. Probably this one was closer to like 2.5, 3 stars. Next is the novella, Especially Heinous. 272 views of Law and Order SVU, and then essentially they called this a new novella, right? And it breaks down as if you're reading like the synopses of the different seasons episodes. So it starts with season 1, and then it'll have like an episode title, like this says season 1 Payback, and then it gives a brief synopsis, and then a single life synopsis. And at first it seems kind of normal. You're like, weird. Not even that, like, but you're following Benson and Stabler, and then yes, there are weird doppelgangers. It is a police procedural, but then there's ghosts, and the ghosts have bells for eyes, and they're possessing Benson. It's interesting. I enjoyed it. It is very long. It is, let's see. It's not quite 100 pages, but let's see. It's about 70 pages, so almost. It is a novella versus the rest have been kind of like 20-ish pages. So you follow through the seasons, and it just gets weird. That's my stomach, if you can hear it grumbling. Having some tummy upsetness. I think it's just nerves and emotions. So there's that one. That one was good. It was very long. It got creepy. I definitely liked the mix of like Law and Order, that like we all know Law and Order, right? Mixing that standard, right, with spooky supernatural elements. I did enjoy that. It's probably about 3 stars for me. Then we have Real Women Have Bodies. This is the one following a sales clerk in the mall that makes a horrifying discovery within the seams of the store's prom dresses. She works at Glam in the mall. They sell, like I said, they sell these dresses. But what is also happening is there's this weird phenomenon going on where women are fading slowly, and they don't know how to stop it. Essentially, women seem to go missing, and then they find that the women are slowly like becoming translucent, like they are turning essentially into like living ghosts. But it's almost like they're dead, but they're not dead, because they're still like existing and they're like crying, but they can't do anything anymore. Yeah, it's intense. And so then this sales clerk takes up a relationship with the daughter of the dressmaker, and they become close. And then she starts seeing that the mother, the dressmaker, is sewing these faded women into the dresses. And it just kind of is off the rails from there. It doesn't really explain anything. It doesn't come to a satisfying conclusion. It ends very, very abruptly. Essentially, she freaks out because she realizes that these women are being sewn into dresses, and then they're bringing the dresses to the store and we're selling the dresses. Her girlfriend, the daughter of this dressmaker, starts to fade, and she just flips out, and she essentially is like screaming at the dresses, like, get out of here. And then like the story ends. What the next story is, what did I rate that? Probably that was I'd say 4 stars. It was a little weird, but I did like that. I like that weirdness. 4 stars. Next is 8 Bites. And then this story is when it really just after this story, it was really, really hard for me to continue reading the book. This one had triggers for me. 8 Bites definitely handles the topics of self-esteem, eating disorders, disordered eating, body image, body dysmorphia, and those topics. And that was triggering for me, and that was difficult for me to read. It has strained mother-daughter relationships, which hit a little close to home, and it also features just strained like familial bonds, like the bonds between the women and families, and how it can either be incredibly supportive or incredibly damaging, and like cyclical generational patterns, right? So 8 Bites follows a woman who is overweight and is contemplating undergoing like what is it called? But not bypass, geriatric bypass, is that right? Gastric bypass? I'm blanking on the words, but she's considering undergoing the surgery where you gastric bypass? That sounds right. That surgery, right? Where it goes in, they essentially put like a hold on your tummy so that you don't eat as much, and then you are able to lose weight, but it does drastically affect your body, and so that you change a lot. So she is like one of several sisters, and all of her sisters were overweight. Their mother was not. Their mother was very conscious of her body, and one by one, all of her sisters then decide to go have this procedure, and then she eventually has this procedure, and we learn through these conversations and through these snippets that in the past her mother always practiced like control and self-discipline, and she only ever ate 8 bites of her food, and that's where the title comes from. And her mother tried to pass that on to her daughters, but they weren't able to do that. And that's the whole thing, is 8 bites. Her mom would eat 8 bites, and then as she goes through her healing process, she's trying to limit how many bites that she eats. But then she has a daughter of her own, and that connection is very stressed and strained, and her daughter doesn't want anything to do with her after she goes through with the surgery and is very upset with her. And then she's dealing with this like weird entity in her basement that appears to be the physical manifestation of the fat that she lost. It's, yeah. And it's like in her basement, and she like screams at it and is upset with it and like wants it to go away. It's, yeah, it's a little weird. But I think it's supposed to also be like an allegory of, it's not just like it physically appears as like the manifestation of, because she's told the fat will melt away, so it is this manifestation. It appears as this kind of melty blob general female form, but it cries and it's sad. Like it's also her feelings and her emotions, and it is a part of her that she has cut off, that she has cut away from herself so she doesn't have to feel it or deal with it. Yeah. But I struggled with this story a lot, and I really only gave it about a 2. Then I think we only have a couple stories left. We have The Resident. The Resident follows an author who is detailing her stay at like an artist's colony up in the mountains, called Devil's Throat. And it's also in the area of where she attended a Girl Scout camp when she was a lot younger, and she is detailing her experience at Devil's Throat in these mountains. But also it kind of, again, this author does a lot with like flashbacks and interspersing bits of the past into like the current to the present. So she also kind of gives little hints of her time at the Girl Scout camp. We never really find out what happened to her, just something happened. There was an incident that happened in her youth, and I think it has to do with her discovering her own sexuality and the fact that she is gay, or at least bi. She had like a little bit of a thing with one of the other girls who did not reciprocate, and I believe you can kind of infer that she realized, oh, I like this. The other girl realized I didn't, and now these feelings are scary and big because you obviously enjoyed yourself, but I didn't really enjoy myself. And then kids being kids turned on her, and I believe they like made fun of her for it. So, but it's following her as she's like trying to like write this novel, which is essentially a memoir. She's writing about herself, and dealing with these other residents, like a painter and a sculptor and a photographer there's a hint of a slight flirtation there. Nothing ever happens though. She takes her photo, and she takes photos of all of them, and poses them in a way that makes them look dead. It's it was weird. After 8 Bites, though, I put this book down, and I really didn't get back to this book until just recently. There were only these 2 stories left, but I just couldn't do it after that one. It just really kind of soured the whole thing for me. But I came back to this, and this one was very tense. I kept waiting for something more to happen. I kept waiting for something even more scary or suspenseful to happen, but it just kept you very tense because you weren't quite sure what was going on. The author becomes sick, like horribly sick, high fever, she's delirious, she becomes very weak, and you're not quite sure what's happening to her. Like, is she imagining it? Is it real? She gets, like I said, she gets very paranoid in her writing. And then, I don't really even know what happens. Like, she writes her novel, but it's like she's writing this whole story, right? She writes about how tense it is, how everyone gets really weird. She walks in on people having sex on the table. But essentially, she ends up getting incredibly paranoid and like loses her ability to like to write. She stumbles across the Girl Scout camp. I kept thinking it was going to reveal that she was like dead this whole time, right? Because we get hints that like her wife isn't writing letters to her. She's not getting mail. She got really sick. She had these weird skin like lesions kind of thing. And she's just not getting better. And we learned that like essentially we guess we did learn what happened. I just looked at it. She like sleptwalked when she was a kid, and she ended up sleepwalking into the middle of the forest, and when she woke up she was like all alone. And she was scared, and so she started to scream, and she wouldn't stop screaming, so she had kind of like a mental break, and they made her leave. And then when this is happening, it kind of like happens again while she's an adult in this area. And then the whole thing ends, like she decides to leave early and she goes home, and then essentially ends it with a letter saying like, does this woman have the temperament to come to our residency, having failed so thoroughly at this one? Like she's been writing like an entrance exam this entire time. It was weird. 3 stars. And then the last story that I just read is called Difficult at Parties, and it is bonkers. Okay? It is bonkers. Utterly bonkers. We are following a woman. We'd never learned their name. We never learned her name. She is with her partner, Paul. It opens with Paul is bringing her home from the hospital. We don't know what happens, but we can safely assume that she has been attacked, that she has been assaulted in her own home. Paul brings her back to her apartment, and she is injured. We get kind of hints at this, that like she has bruises all across her body. He has gone to try and like touch her, and she flinches away from him. He wants her to move. Like he keeps saying, I'm looking at other apartments for you. I think you should move. And she's like, I don't want to move. You know, little hints that this has happened. Like he's staying the night with her, and she says, go lock the door. He says, I did. She's like, go lock it again, and makes him relock the door. They come to the bedroom. He asks her, he's a great partner. He's like, where would you like me to sleep? And she's like, in the bed. And then when they wake up the next morning, he's in like a chair in the corner of the room with a black eye. And when she asks him what happened, he tells her that she like thrashed through the night. And when he tried to like help her, she elbowed him in the face. So we know that something is going on, right? Like she's having these nightmares. She's having a really rough time. She doesn't remember it in her sleep. She's secluded. She's keeping herself at home. He wants her to go to a housewarming party for a gay couple. Leading up to that, though, they are not being intimate. They decide they need to try something, so they order some adult DVDs. When the first adult DVD arrives, she puts it in the player to try and watch it, see if it does something for her. And instead of hearing just what's happening on this movie, also this is not appropriate for children, so if your kids are in the room, they should not be in the room. They, instead of watching this movie, she is not only hearing the sounds of their activities, but appears to be hearing their inner monologue. She's able to hear their own thoughts. She thinks something's wrong. She stops the disc, ends up getting rid of it, thinks the DVD was messed up. But this happens again. Like they get another DVD, and tries it, and she can hear their inner thoughts. When she asks Paul if he can hear it, he's like, what are you talking about? I can't, like, no, I'm only hearing the normal kinds of sounds, right? He ends up asking her to go to this housewarming party for a couple. She kind of freaks out and says it's going to be mostly women. We'll be safe there. Takes her. She goes to the party. There is a man there with a camcorder who is filming her, and she becomes very, very unsettled, very uneasy, asks him to stop. But then throughout the party, she can't quit looking back at this camera and focusing on this camera. She gets drunk and decides to leave. As she walks out of the party, she walks by, takes the camera with her, and brings it home, but like sneaks it into the trunk of their car. Paul comes out, they take her home. She then sets the camera up in her bedroom, like up on a shelf, and she films herself sleeping. She watches that footage, sees what happens in her dreams, like as she's having these night terrors, how Paul tries to help her by like holding her, trying to restrain her from hitting him. She hears her like shout, no, 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 don't touch me, like over and over. Like, it's very distressing, I will say. And then she becomes obsessed when she realizes she is hearing people's thoughts while they're having sex. She can watch videos and hear people's thoughts. So she subscribes to some adult websites and starts just to be this obsession where she's just watching video after video after video and listening to them, and listening to their inner thoughts. And then the story ends with her taking Paul into the bedroom for their own activities. And then when she wakes up the next morning, she takes the film out of the camera, takes it to her TV, and starts to watch it. And that's where it ends. And that was, I mean, it led up to that. You knew that eventually was going to happen. But that was really, really interesting to me. And now that looking back at it, the story opens, the first line of the story says, afterward, there is no kind of quiet like the one that is in my head, like implying that her brain is just gone, like that she is not thinking of anything at all. And that's so interesting to me. So then the story ends, she puts the tape on and starts to listen. And it's like she wants to hear what her own brain is thinking in that moment, or if there is anything, right? What is Paul thinking in that moment? So yeah, I liked that story a lot. I'm gonna give that one a 4. I can't remember all of the things I've said. Probably average is about a 4 based off of the amount of 4s I gave. So that was this book. This is Her Body and Other Parties. I just finished this. All right, so today is August 31st, and I have one last book to talk about to wrap up this reading vlog for the month of August, and that is The Gauntlet by Karuna Riazi. It is a juvenile fiction, middle grade fiction, and I actually have a guest tonight who is going to talk with us about it.
Hello.
It's Kaden. So Kaden is here. Do you need to like try and sit up here with me?
I'm good.
Okay, so Kaden is going to talk with me as well because we both read this book. Well, and Kennedy, I guess. Go over there, miss. So we both read this book this month separately, individually. I read it and he read it. He finished it before me. I just finished it literally 5 minutes ago before filming this. So we're going to talk about this. This follows Farah Mirza and her friends. It is Farah's 12th, not 13th, I almost said 13th, 12th birthday, and she is given a present by her Aunt Zora, who says it's a bundle of books, but actually it's this weird board game. And she goes upstairs with her 2 friends, Essie and Alex, and they start to play this board game, but of course things get thwarted because her younger brother Ahmad, who is 7, joins in, disrupts the whole thing, and it becomes this Jumanji-esque type whirlwind. So they start to play, they say they're ready for the gauntlet, which is the game, and they get sucked into the board game like Jumanji, and they are forced to complete 3 challenges. They have to win each challenge. If they win, they are free, they've earned their freedom, and they get to escape. If they lose, then they are stuck in the board game forever. So Aunt Zora, we learn as well, played this when she was a child and managed to escape. She got rejected from the game because she refused to learn to play by the rules. It's a whole thing. So there's some family history there. Her aunt had played it when she was young. Then she somehow managed to accidentally, not intentionally, give it to her niece on her 12th birthday. You have to be 12 to play the game. Ahmad is only 7, so he cannot play the game. He's lost, so they're trying to complete challenges while also trying to find her brother, and things ensue. We are not going to talk any spoilers. We're not going to say anything that happens in the book because I think we both enjoyed it. But I want to go ahead and let Caden talk now, and I want Caden to tell us what he thought of it, favorite part, least favorite part, favorite character, and then, of course, your star rating. Go ahead.
I thought it was a pretty good book. I really like action books and where you have to do puzzles and stuff to figure it out. My favorite part was the second challenge, I think it was. And my least favorite part was probably the third one. But overall, I'd probably give it a 5. It was a pretty good book.
Wow, like you loved it.
Yeah, I loved it.
I told him before we started filming star ratings of like 1 star is
I
like
would read it again.
like did not like it at all kind of thing. 2 stars is a meh. 3 stars is like it was okay, it was good. 4 stars is it was really good. 5 stars is like absolutely love it, would recommend it, would read it. I think my camera is having trouble focusing, so sorry for that. So why did you read the book?
Because I saw it on the couch and I was like, oh, I wonder what this is. And I started reading. I was like, ooh, I really like this. And then I read it all the way through, and it was actually really good.
Good. So let's see. I would say my favorite part was I liked the first challenge a lot. I think we can kind of share that. It's not too much spoilers. Challenge 1, they play a giant game of Mancala, which I personally have played, and I really like to play that game.
Me too.
The second challenge, they're kind of floating on like these blocks in the air, and they have to make like sets of 3. They had to match like patterns and make sets of 3s, but then there were these like metal spiders that were crawling out. The camel spiders that were like crawling out of places and also like destroying the blocks and everything like that.
If you stepped on a wrong block, it would break under your feet, and then camel spiders would come out of it.
And then the third challenge, I just read it. They had essentially think Scrabble tiles, and they were supposed to rearrange them to spell words or to make a phrase. And all of it is timed. They only have so much time. They're in a city. They have to navigate the city. They only have about an hour to get from one place to the other, and then they only have an hour for the challenge.
But the person in charge of the gauntlet, the architect, cheated and made their time go by faster.
That's kind of a spoiler. That's a minor spoiler, but yes, that's the whole crux of it too. Is they're playing this game, but they need to be aware that the architect, the person who has created the game, manipulates the world against them. You know, he is in control, so he manipulates the world. He manipulates the elements, the weather, the time, and things like that. My least favorite part was the blood, the like blood ocean, blood river. Not because it was like gross. Like I could picture that very easily. That visual was very strong. It kind of shocked me that there was this blood imagery in a middle grade novel. essentially at one point he makes it rain, but it's not water, it's blood. He makes it rain blood, and it floods the city, and they're like trying to not drown in this flood of blood, and it was just,
That rhymes.
it does, but it was very scary, it was very unsettling, and that was probably my least favorite part. Who is your favorite character?
I gotta say Alex, because he sounds a lot like me.
You liked Alex. Okay. I mean, I liked Farah. She was the main character, of course. I liked the representation. Farah wears a hijab. Her family is very obviously Middle Eastern. I really, really liked that representation. Essie is described, she is a white girl with red curly hair. She's very spunky. She's very brash. She's very bold. Alex, I don't really remember Alex's description other than like he's kind of nerdy, he's bookish. You're more likely to find him curled up in a corner with a book and glasses. He seems to be very quiet and pragmatic. And then Ahmad is this precocious 7-year-old, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. What are you looking for?
It tells what she is, what type she is.
Like where her family is from?
Yeah. Where was it?
Well, I will look at it later, and I can always add it in later, buddy. It's okay. Because unfortunately, Caden does need to go to bed. It is a school night, and he does have school, and it is his bedtime. So don't worry. I will make sure. I will look for it, buddy. I promise. But how about you go
There we go.
ahead?
She is a Bangladeshi girl.
Yes.
That's what they
From
are.
Bangladesh. All right. You want to say goodnight?
Bye. Have a good time.
All right. Good night, Sweet Pea.
Do whatever your heart's content.
Thank you for those words of wisdom.
Never give up.
So, just a few more thoughts, and then I'm going to wrap this up because I do need to say goodnight to him. I think, for me personally, there's no flattering angle right now for this. I'm wearing a hoodie. I don't need to be wearing this hoodie. It's not cold enough for a hoodie, but I'm not wearing a bra, and I didn't feel like getting in trouble on YouTube for not wearing a bra because I'm in my pajamas because it's bedtime. Anyways, so, drink break. For me personally, this is a 3. This is a 3-star novel. There is nothing wrong with middle grade novels. I really like a really well written middle grade novel. This had action, it had adventure. I think it is perfect for Caden's age. He obviously loved it. It just, for me, there were too many glaring kind of things that stuck out that I just couldn't get behind. It did feel like Jumanji, but in a weird Middle Eastern steampunk way. There's a lot of gears, lots of machinery and mechanics and stuff like that just, which is fine. It just it almost felt like a Jumanji ripoff, and I couldn't move past that, right? For him, he's never heard of Jumanji before. We have not introduced him to Jumanji, so he doesn't have that baseline knowledge. I do. The other thing that I just couldn't get past was the characterization of ADHD. So, her little brother, Ahmad, who is 7, has ADHD, and it is discussed in the first couple chapters. Only before, and they explicitly say that it's ADHD, but before they tell you that's what it is, they make it sound as if he has a more severe, like, mental disability. And that really bothered me. The way they describe him before they tell you, Like, you meet him, he's like throwing a tantrum, he's throwing a fit in the very first way. There's a prologue where it talks about how, like, in her family they play board games, that's what they do, like it's a very important thing. But if you are her, you always invite your little brother to play with you, and you gave up every single game to him, no ifs, ands, buts, or days off. Like, you always let him win. So it makes you think that he has potentially a more severe disability, and she lets him win because of that. Like, it makes it seem as if he has Down syndrome or some sort of like just mental hindrance, right? And I'm expecting them to come out that he's like autistic. I really thought that's what it was. Like, I thought that he was going to come out with autism, and I was at first really excited about that. Like, I thought I was going to be reading this really inclusive book with Bangladesh characters and autism, and then out of nowhere, so he's like throwing a tantrum that you have to let him win, even though it's her birthday. You know, he wants all of her attention, he wants her gifts. They even give him gifts on her birthday, and then it's all of a sudden she knew that Ahmad's, I know I'm saying it incorrectly and I apologize. She knew that his ADHD meant he couldn't always control himself. Baba said Ahmad had moments where he was trapped in his own overwhelming emotions, like being lost in a frustrating maze, and Farah had to be patient until he found his way out again. And then it's not mentioned again that he has ADHD, and then it's just gone. But that moment there, 8 pages in, I read that sentence and it just ruined the book for me. Because as someone with ADHD who has been diagnosed later in life with it, I don't want to be treated like a charity case. I don't want to be treated or described in a way that is going to make readers think that there is a severe, like, mental handicap involved or a severe disability. So that just really rubbed me the wrong way. I did not like how he was characterized. I did not like how it was portrayed. I think that was written very poorly for it to just be ADHD. And this book, it's not like this book came out when we don't know about it. This book was published in 2017. So it's not like information isn't there about ADHD in children, especially boy children. So I just really had a problem with that. I did not like how he was portrayed. I didn't like how ADHD was portrayed at all, as this very negative, overwhelming thing. Yes, sometimes you do get stuck in your emotions, but I would never describe it as like, you have to let me win or else it's the end of the world if we play games. I lose quite frequently when I play games, and I don't lose my mind over it. Or that we have to be given gifts on someone else's birthday so that we don't throw fits. Like, just the whole idea of like throwing a temper tantrum because he has ADHD doesn't track in my experience as someone with it and as someone who has worked with children with ADHD as well. So all of that combined just brought it down to a 3 for me. But I'm gonna leave it there. I will come back and I will wrap this up and check in again soon and go over all of the books I read in the month of August, since it is now officially the last day of August, and I will wrap this video up with that. But for now, I gotta go say goodnight to my kid, and I will be back very, very soon. Okay, this is the last clip of my August reading vlog. It is actually a couple days into September, but I am going to do a wrap up. So this is it. I have my planner, I have all of my little stats that I wanted to share. So let's do this short and sweet because I've already started editing the video and it's over an hour long. So by the time you watch this though, you'll know it's already an hour long. All right, so in the month of August, I read a total of 4 books. I don't really know what happened. I think I just kept thinking I had more time, I had more time, I had more time. And I also had convinced myself partially through the month that I had already finished several of the prompts, which I hadn't. So yeah, that definitely threw me for a loop. and I started watching like TV. I just kind of hit like I don't even say I hit a reading slump. I just got into this kind of like nostalgia for old TV shows and started watching, like I went way back and watched for the very first time, not even rewatched, but watched for the very first time the very, very first season of Law and Order. Not Law and Order SVU, Law and Order, the very first season from the 90s. And that just kind of started a rabbit hole. And then I started to rewatch The Vampire Diaries just because I can. So here we are a couple days into September now. Let's get into it. So 4 books total, 2 hardbacks, 1 paperback, and 1 audiobook. I did not finish my Magical Stitches prompts. So let's review what I was supposed to have done. So I had, for Magical Stitches, we had Some Kind of Big Dances Held, the cover shows a pattern background, and a thriller. The only one I had completed is the Some Kind of Big Dances Held, because I read House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin A. Craig back in like January or February, and that is all about these daughters sneaking off and going to these giant balls. Did not read, the cover has a pattern background, did not read a thriller. I had those picked. I ended up picking Salt House Place from Amazon First Reads as my thriller. Opened it, did not read any of it, did not even put on hold A Marvelous Light by Freya Marska. Like, I have it written down, but I didn't do it. The family book club I've mentioned multiple times is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. I bought a copy of it, which if you've seen my haul, you know I did that, but I also did put it on hold to have an audio copy, and I did get the audio copy and have listened to it. Technically, I have finished it, but that's going to go into the September book vlog because I finished it in September, even though I did the majority of listening to it, reading it in August. The WIPGO numbers were 18 and 24, and I think this is where I confused myself and was like, I've already done the prompts, because I had also already finished the WIPGO numbers. They were 18 and 24. 18 was set in England or Australia, and 24 was a plate, a teacup, or a thimble on the cover, and I've already finished both of those. Then for my Goodreads Horror 2022 challenge, the next on my list was We Spread by Ian Reid. It is still right here. Did not read it. And then the Stephen King, the next in my Stephen King, actually I was kind of going back because I skipped over one, is Roadwork. Didn't get it at all. So what did I read? And this is where it gets fun to look at, right? So of those 4 books, like I said, I read Such Sharp Teeth for the Goodreads horror. I read In Deeper Waters just for funs. Her Body and Other Parties, which was a short story collection, which fulfilled an old Magical Stitches prompt about page numbers. Like, it had to have page numbers that featured specific numbers. Did that. And then The Gauntlet, which also was a Magical Stitches prompt from the past because it featured a board game being played. So those are the 4 books I read. Now, my average star rating for this video was a 3.3, which kind of surprised me. I don't know. I'm looking at the number. I have it all written down. I have one that is a 2.75 to a 3. I have 1 3-star. I have one that averaged, the short story collection averaged a 3.5. And then I have one that was a 4-star. So no 5 stars, nothing was high, but all of that averaged out was a 3.3. And my favorite book was In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens, which I listened to. That was my audiobook. Yeah, so I got some books to read and catch up on. I am behind on my year-long reading challenge, so I've got some reading I need to do. Need to kick it into gear. But yeah, stay tuned. I will be doing when my plan with me for September comes out. I will be sharing my reading plans for the month of September. I've already finished a book. So yeah, like, it's coming. I'm trying to get back into it. I have a stack of books right here. I'm not going to show you because I'm going to talk about those in a different video, but I have a stack of books pulled for prompts that fit prompts. So here's hoping. But this was my August reading vlog. I realized in editing this that I also said a bunch of things weirdly or wrongly. Laugh at them. That's all I can tell you to do, because that's just how it is, and I'm weird. So enjoy. But I will see you all very, very soon. In the meantime, happy reading, happy stitching, happy watching, happy listening, happy doing whatever it is that makes you happy doing. I have not said that in quite some time. And I will see you all very, very soon. Be easy with your hearts.